Thank you so much, Julia, and welcome, Columbia CSL and friends far and wide. A grand rising to everyone on this beautiful autumn day. We are, yes, in a time and place of conscious evolution where it would serve humanity to become more curious about where each of us can plug in, don't you think? As opposed to being on guard. We're asking deeper questions, not of the establishment or worldly goings on, but about what pattern of core beliefs might be keeping us in a reactionary mode of flight or fight. You know, we can count on ourselves for much. We can count on ourselves to get the job done sometimes. We can feel a great sense of accomplishment for achieving a goal sometimes, and believe as though we are living on purpose sometimes. But none of the above is as growth provoking and enriching as awakening in the presence of a witness, our fellow humans accompany us on this journey. So, today we enter into our new monthly theme, Going Further Together, through the contemplation of the meaning of sacred independence and how perhaps to walk towards it. So, as we awaken to the truth of the sacredness and the beauty of our unique lives, we begin with the understanding, as always, that there is one divine, universal pattern expressing through all creation. And that to work with this idea practically in our daily lives changes us. Now, we can all agree that everything is energy, and everything is our use of that energy through thought, expression, and action as we communicate and connect in relationship with our inner and our outer worlds. Yes, that's pretty simple. But creating an interdependent relational experience with our outer life will happen correspondingly as a reflection of how well we integrate our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual energies within to bring about an experience of harmony. A reflection of the day-to-day experience of balance or disharmony that appears and our reaction to it is something very important to be mindful of. A reflection of our moment-to-moment mindfulness in the practice of being present in the care of ourselves and, of course, of others. All relational experiences are effects. They're representations, outcomes, often mistaken as the cause of why we feel about ourselves as we do. Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the teaching, Science of Mind, states, change your mind, change your life. Many of you have heard this a lot. Now, this also could be stated in so many other ways that perhaps feel a little more relevant to how individuals need to be met right at their particular stage of moving from dependence to independence and into the highest ideal, being in alignment with the sacred interdependence within the principle of wholeness and unity. Excuse me. So perhaps instead of changing our minds, which can sometimes elicit an image of anywhere from letting go to death of one's identity, we could use the term turn your mind and change your experience. Now, this to me illustrates the first step of commitment, which is attainable and measurable, right where we are. The more we turn our mind, we will eventually experience a changed life. Interdependence, to me, is about being intimately connected and led from the awareness of and belief in the fact that there is only one life. and executed or practiced from a place of love and honor and equity for all. Intimacy with others, well, can only happen when we understand that the other is an extension of ourselves, explained metaphysically as a reflection of our own beliefs about who and what we are. Now, just like we've never really seen with our own eyes what we really look like as we gaze into, I'm looking at my mirror over here, we gaze into the mirror, we see a mirror image of ourselves when getting ready for the day. So, we cannot really know what is seen through the eyes of the outside world looking in on us, can we? Now, this is why our work is to write our own thinking about who and whose we are as an extension of that ultimate infinite intelligence, that cause, which created us out of itself. We do the same thing, create our thoughts about our seeing perception and our experience around something out of ourselves. It's the same thing. So intimacy is required to know the sacred and asks us not to fear intimacy with ourselves. It asks us to see ourselves for who we are and accept it. Being honest, being accountable, contemplative about how we think about ourselves, who we believe ourselves to be. Yes, at the very same time. Doors shut as others are opening at the same time, reflecting the natural energetic harmony of the universe everywhere present and operating through the natural law in this ongoing universal life-death cycle. Now, many think that one idea or experience must find closure. It must no longer exist as a competitor for our attention before we can be clear to focus on something else. Not true. The universal creative process is still happening, whether we are looking behind or in front of us. And as we focus on the creative potential of the present and our belief in the power of our new intention, the past is being naturally released. As we focus on the creative potential of the present and our belief in the power of our new intention, the past is being naturally released. In this constant life-death cycle, we shed our limiting beliefs by expanding our conscious understanding of our divinity and our humanity as being one thing. In this expanding awareness, our defenses naturally dissolve. And the closed sign on the door of our heart turns over to read open. Now, our teaching states that there is no process of healing because the spiritual nature of our life, our DNA, is whole, complete, and perfect. But we do experience in the time-space continuum a process in our healing journeys. Again, based upon who we believe ourselves to be and what is possible in our lives to experience by means of us, through our choices. I'm going to give you a recent personal example. I went for a few medical tests because something is not feeling right in my body. Okay? So every time that happens, all tests that I take prove everything is right within my body. Bam! Yep. It's all in my head. Now, not that it doesn't exist in my body, but it increases or decreases its presence as an effect of me turning my mind away from the condition or not. So turning away means remembering that all experience is a reflection of my belief system, the seed planter of growth. Yesterday I was sitting in the park waiting for my partner to finish with some x-ray procedures. We're both in it. Interesting. And found just a swing to occupy myself. Now, during that time, along came a very attentive mother and her beautiful 3-year-old daughter and their longtime family 4-legged friend, Sage, the French bulldog. Very cute. Now, as the scene unfolded, the idea of turning one's mind was illustrated to me in spades. I was watching the dog, and I was sensing some real physical discomfort within its body. Now, at the very moment, the mother exclaimed, "Our dog is healthy and happy and will live for a very long time." I kind of shook my head, and I was amused, watching the synchronicity of everything unfolding in its wholeness at the same time. Now, hearing this, you might say, well, the mother's mind in her statement was turned to the truth, her dog's wholeness, spiritually speaking. But my mind was perceiving discomfort and perhaps pain in the dog's body. So it was turned to the condition. Now, which perspective illustrates what Dr. Holmes refers to as right thinking? Well, I'm going to leave that one with you. But suffice to say, each of us were turned into what seemed like an opposite focus, when in fact, each of us together were experiencing the one life from our own choice of focus. The power and presence is all there is. There's one life. So nothing can live outside of that life. So I was sensing the body of the dog while the mom was sensing the spirit, both of equal value. Now, while our thought processes may be quickly judged as being opposite from one another, they in fact were two sides of the same coin, or sacred complements of one another. Now, this is an important distinction when intending to turn our mind in ways that will walk us into the joy through the challenges of letting go our dependence and independence, into living in sacred independence with all life. While our 4-leggeds and our bodies of water, small children, and ancient trees may elicit an immediate feeling of sacred unity, connection with life, more than, say, our last boss or our partner or our present country leader, the fact still remains that a sacred connection, albeit a great start, requires intentional and mindful living to move us from being dependent upon something other to independent in the sense of a withdrawal from life, and into living with a mental resolve and open heart. This mental resolve is built upon the commitment and constancy of turning our mind not only away from the power we give the condition, but from the idea of separation or otherness. Now, one of the ways we turn our minds without the presence of heart is when we fail to face the feelings of sadness and grief that accompany us through this idea of loss or losing something or someone. Even a long-time belief, and most specifically our long-time beliefs that served as a friend along our path of self-discovery, need to be processed and released. These feelings are real to us and a vital aspect of the beauty of our humanity. For these feelings, the journey to identify these feelings, the release of these feelings, the sharing of these feelings, the honoring of these feelings, tell the story of our mind-heart connection, the story of our mind-body connection, our ego-soul connection, our connection and communion with the God of our understanding, and finally, are a vital foundational key to the embracement of our humanity so that we may know our divinity. Now, we, like many of our New Thought communities and beyond, are having to think again, this time using imagination, intuition, The wisdom of the collective heart, the reassessment of our values, our needs, our purpose, and the actionable steps in the intention to be sustainable and contributing to a world that works for everyone. This need to release and recalibrate is in everyone. And with this death, along with new life, comes the intense feelings of letting go. Not so much of what was or is out there, but who we are in relationship with that. The death is internal and external, happening simultaneously. And as we acknowledge and accept our feelings, the power over us that we have given them naturally diminishes. So acknowledging and including our feelings is so necessary to create a new reality. For as Dr. Ernest Holmes reminds us, that although all thoughts are creative, thoughts plus feelings are more creative than the energy of thought alone. Our communities are going through change, whether in effect of global happenings or the unexpected challenges occurring within their own four walls. But they are not in need of fixing or repair because nothing is broken. As the universal creative process of life creating out of itself is breaking away and building up at the same time. It is happening on both the invisible spiritual realm and in the invisible material realm simultaneously. This creative process will continue, no matter our perceptions of who we believe ourselves to be. Because the nature of life keeps creating, evolving forward, expanding beyond what has gone before in its expression, and so do we, even if we are not aware of its happening. Communities regenerate themselves in accordance with the natural universal laws and spiritual principles in operation, and also through being directed by the collective conscious agreement to be in sacred independence or interdependence with each other. Now, as a community brought together through the desire and intention to clear and deepen our connection into a feeling of sacred unity, our starting place must be mindful self-care. Now, that does not exclude the care of others. And it is from this intimacy, born in direct communion with Spirit's knowing of itself as the one life, that sacred interdependence is created. Here are some steps I want to offer you that you might take that were part of my journey. First is to rewrite your story, turning your mind from how your life is now reflecting the challenges of the past to how your life is now out of picturing its gifts. You see, enough time has passed that you can be objective when you look behind yourself in order to be able to create a new understanding and truth of who you are in this moment. Another thing is to practice turning your mind away from the perception of opposites, opposing thoughts, or the belly of the shadow inside of us, or the collective one reflecting in the global experience that many of us can attest to, that is happening right now. Everything and everyone, be it individually or collectively, is struggling to know its value and purpose. But it is on its right and perfect path. When we turn our minds to uniting with the sacred complement, we will experience divine harmony within and without. And the other one is to allow yourself to hear and to relate and become one with that multi-layered voice of the marginalized, the terrorized, and the spirit within those we see as perpetrators of inequity and injustice. Eugene Holden spoke last week, and Julia reminded me of something he said, which really hit home with me as I heard him speak it, but I'd forgotten in that moment, which was, we have to pray for everyone, not just those that we feel a connection to, because the truth is we are connected to everyone. In a recent interview of the great baseball player Yogi Berra, I don't know if you remember Yogi Berra, I wasn't a baseball fan, but he was interviewed on the subject of explaining jazz music. And I just love this. I hope you have as much fun with it as I did. So the interviewer says to Yogi Berra, he says, "Can you explain jazz?" And Yogi says, "I can't, but I will. 90% of all jazz is half improvisation. The other half is the part people play while others are playing something they never played with anyone who played that part. So if you play the wrong part, it's right. If you play the right part, it might be right if you play it wrong enough. But if you play it too right, it's wrong." The interviewer says, "I don't understand." And Yogi continues, "Well, anyone who understands jazz knows that you can't understand it. It's too complicated. That's what's so simple about it." The interviewer, "Do you understand it?" Yogi, "No. That's why I can explain it. If I understood it, I wouldn't know anything about it." Isn't that like life? As students of the spiritual living way, we can be certain on the scientific aspects of our teaching, the science of mind, which agrees that this universe is governed by natural laws, which are imprinted and changed by the energy of thought and action. That there is much more than we can prove or demonstrate presently. As students of this teaching, we can also be certain of two things: that whatever is intelligent, what this intelligent, creative, invisible power may be, that it works in concert with the power of our belief to produce a specific effect or condition. And that as we turn our thinking, change our thinking, and expand our thinking, we are called further into the unknown and are welcoming to it. So perhaps listening to the inherent harmony within the multi-layered voices of the instruments, with not one in the lead, wearing all its curiosity and discovery on its sleeve, as it plays intuitively the sharps and flats, off time and in sync, to effect a perfect balance in the flow of the convergence of cause and effect, illusion and truth, our humanity and divinity, is the way to sacred interdependence. Awakening humanity is aware of facts, solutions, and truth, present in the individual and collective experience of life at all times, and just embrace it as the sacred path to the awakening of our I Am Presence. You know, this I Am Presence is operating just as we are, right where we are, in each of our lives, and in the listening to and following of our own divine wisdom. We are intuitively guided in ways that are helping us to transcend and transmute what we perceive, or should I say, our perception of life being chaotic. As we lift ourselves up into this trust in a divine, orderly universe, others will be lifted up with us. They'll be able to hear the inner guidance of their I Am Presence. Let us awaken it together, knowing that how we live becomes our prayer. Walking not dependently in need of getting our good from another, nor in the pride of interdependence, creating a numbing and sometimes painful state of separateness and the illusion of safety, but awakening from a deep, deep sleep into sacred interdependence and care for this one life present everywhere. You know, here we will be clear about who and whose we are and why we are on earth during this auspicious time. Life is a blessing, always and in all ways. And so are we, and so it is.